To see him sitting there in the dim-lit darkness of the study, one would have never suspected him for what he was. Wizards nowadays are not garbed in cabalistic robes of silver and black. Instead, they wear purple dressing gowns. It is not required of them that their eyebrows meet, their nails grow long as talons, and their eyes flame like emerald-imprisoned dreams. Nor are they necessarily bent and furtive and old. This one was not. He was young and slim, almost imperially straightforward. He sat beneath the lamplight in the great oak-paneled room, a dark, handsome man of perhaps 35 years of age. There was little of cruelty or malice visible in his keen, clear-featured face, and little of madness in his eyes. Yet he was a wizard, just as surely as if he lurked over human sacrifices in the skull-strewn darkness of forbidden tombs. It was only necessary for one to survey the walls of his study for corroboration. Only a wizard would possess those moldering, maggoty volumes of monstrous and fantastic lore. Only a thaumaturgical adept would dare the darker mysteries of the Necronomicon, Ludwig Prin's Mysteries of the Worm, the black rites of Mad Louve Carif, Priest of Bast, or Comte d'Erlet's ghastly Culte des Goules. No one save a sorcerer would have access to the ancient manuscripts bound in Ethiopian skin, or burn such rich and aphrodisiac incense in an enshrined skull. Who else would fill the mercifully cloaking darkness of the room with curious relics, mortuary souvenirs from ravished graves, or worm-demolished scrolls of primal dread? Superficially, it was a normal room that night, and its occupant a normal man. But for proof of its inherent strangeness, it was not necessary to glance at the skull, the bookcases, or the grim, shadow-shrouded remains to know its occupant for what he was. For James Allington wrote in his secret diary tonight, and his musings were far from sanity. Tonight I am ready to make the test. I am convinced at last that splitting of the identity can be accomplished by means of therapeutic hypnotism, provided that the mental attitude conducive to such a partition can be induced. Fascinating subject that. Dual identity. The dream of men from the beginning of time. Two souls in one body. All philosophy is based on comparative logic, good and evil. Why then cannot such a division exist in the human soul? Stevenson was only partly right when he wrote Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He imagined a chemical metamorphosis varying from one extreme to the other. I believe that both identities are coexistent, that once they are separated by auto-hypnotic thought, a man can enjoy two existences simultaneously, his good self and his bad. They laughed at my theory in the club. Foster, that pompous old fool, called me a dreamer. Dreamer? What does he, a petty scientific chemist, know of the basic mysteries of life and death? A glimpse into my laboratory would shock his smug soul into insanity. The others, too, mob catering writers, pedantic fossils who call themselves professors, prim biologists who are shocked at the mention of my experiments in synthetic creation of life. What do such as these understand? They would shudder at the Necronomicon, burn it too if they could, burn it as their pious ancestors did 300 years ago. Witch-baiters, skeptics, materialists all, I'm sick of the whole silly pack of them. It is the fate of the genius to dwell alone. Very well then, I'll dwell alone, but soon they will come cringing to my door and beg for mercy. If my work tonight only succeeds, if I can succeed in hypnotizing myself into dual personality physically manifested, even modern psychology claims it can be done. Spiritualism credits its possibilities. The ancients have furnished me the key to the problem as they have done before. Alhazred knew many things. It was only the weight of the knowledge that drove him mad. Then things happened. Out of the darkness, nightmare came. Stark, staring nightmare, a monstrous, hairy figure, huge, grotesque simian, a hideous travesty of all things human. It was black madness. Slavering, mocking madness with little red eyes of wisdom, old and evil, leering snout and yellow fangs of grimacing death. It was like a rotting, living skull upon the body of a black ape. It was grisly and wicked, troglodytic and wise. A monstrous thought assailed Allington. Was this his other self, this ghoul-spawned, charnel horror of corpse-accursed dread? Too late the wizard realized what had befallen him. His experiment had succeeded, but terribly so. He had not realized how far the evil in his nature had outbalanced the good. This monster, this grisly abomination of darkness was stronger than he was, and being solely evil, it was not mentally controlled by his other self. Allington viewed it now with new fear in his eyes. It was like a creature from the pit. All that was foul and obscene and anti-human in his makeup lay behind that grinning parody of a countenance. The beast-like body hinted of shadows that creep beneath the grave or lurk entombed within the deepest recesses of normal minds. Yet in it Allington recognized a mad, atavistic caricature of himself. All the lust, the greed, the insane ambition, the cruelty, the ignorance, the fiend-spawned secrets of his soul within the body of a gigantic ape. As if in answer to his recognition, the creature laughed, and tentacles of horror gripped the wizard's heart. The thing was coming toward him. It meant to destroy him, as evil always does. Allington, his tiny body ludicrously struggling to move quickly while impeded by clothes now ridiculously large for his diminutive frame, raced from his chair and flattened himself against the wall of the study. His voice, curiously treble, shrieked frantic supplication and futile commands to the approaching nemesis. His prayers and curses turned to the hoarse gibberings of madness as the huge beast lunged across the table. His experiment was succeeding with a vengeance. Vengeance! His glaring eyes watched, fascinated, as one great paw grasped the paper knife, and fearsome laughter riddled the night. It was laughing. Laughing! Somewhere an alarm clock rang, but the wizard could not hear. They found James Allington lying dead upon his study floor. There was a paper knife embedded in his breast, and they called it suicide, for no one could possibly have entered that locked and windowless room. But that did not explain the fingerprints on the handle of the knife, the terrible fingerprints like those left by the hand of a gigantic ape.